Hi everyone, I'm here to talk to you about writing assignment number 2. In writing assignment number 1, you wrote about your mother or grandmother, and you are practicing a kind of writing called nonfiction. And you'll remember that we read two different stories that were nonfiction. The first one was called Rice, and in that story, the woman wrote about her father and the special dish of rice that he made, that only he could make. And in the second story by Junot Diaz called The Money, he wrote about the time that someone broke into his home and stole some of his favorite things and some money that his family needed to pay for food or rent. So both of those stories are called nonfiction because they're stories that are written about a true life experience. And the writers want to write the story because they know that their story matters to them and they want to share it with other people. So you chose to write about your grandmother and your mother because you love them and you want to tell what kind of people they are. You want to share those stories with me and with Adrian and anyone else who might read your stories. For the second writing assignment, we are going to give you a choice. You can write nonfiction or you can write fiction. We started reading some fiction. You'll remember we read Harris and Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut. That one is a story that isn't really about, there's a family in the story, but it really is not about a family. It's about the way society works. It's about the government more. So definitely there is a family in the story. And in the second piece of fiction we read, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, we only read a part of chapter 5. We also know that there's a family in the story because there's Mick and then her two brothers, and there are friends from the neighborhood. So the family isn't really the story, it's more what the children are doing outside, playing on the porch, and the very sad thing that happens to Baby with the gun, and Bubber shooting the gun. So for writing assignment number 2, you get to choose. You get to choose whether you want to write fiction or nonfiction. Remember in class I said, please think of a topic. Over the weekend, think of a topic of an event that happened to you in your childhood. In Harris and Bergeron, we know that the son is trying to take off all the heavy things. He dances with the ballerina. He's trying to become the person he wants to be. And in Chapter 5 of The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, Mick, the girl, is trying to be with her friends, but also be inside her mind, right? To be who she is inside her mind. So Adrian and I thought, since we read these two stories about these two young people, that maybe you should write a story about something that's happened to you earlier in your life, maybe when you're a child. I gave 2 examples in class, and I'm going to repeat them. The first example topic I am thinking about, something I might use to write my story, is what I told you in class about my father. And he used to carry a gun over his shoulder inside our house sometimes, which made me upset. I didn't like that when I was a little girl. So I could use that topic, but I don't want to write it as nonfiction. If I chose that topic as nonfiction, I would be writing something called, see if I can figure out where to put this in the screen. Nonfiction, this story, The Money, the story Rice, we can call it this word, memoir. It means a story about a memory that you have from your life. Or the story Rice that we read, and the story The Money that we read, can also be called personal narrative. These are very similar kinds of writing. Genres, a genre, G-E-N-R-E. These are just names for certain kinds of things that we read and we write. So if I choose nonfiction and I choose to use the topic about my father and his gun, I would be writing either memoir or personal narrative, which is the same writing that you did when you wrote about your grandmother or your mother. But if I choose a topic about my father and the gun that he held and carried around our house, and I didn't want to make it real, I wanted to pretend that the girl in the story was not me, it was someone else, I could write fiction. And we call this kind of story a short story. Excuse me, it's not long. Harrison Bergeron is a short story. It's fiction, and it's a short piece of fiction. And The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, you'll remember, is a whole book. It's a novel. It is not a short story. But I gave you just part of a chapter, so I can pretend that it's a shorter story, but I know it comes from a longer novel. For this assignment number 2, if I choose to use my topic about my father and the gun, I might decide to write it as fiction, a pretend story based on something that was real and did happen to me in my childhood. But I don't want to tell it from first person point of view. I don't want to tell it from my point of view and say I and me. I want to tell it from third person. And I want to change my name in my story to a pretend name and pretend the little girl who saw her father marching around the house with his gun is someone else, because I want it not to be a true story. I want it to be a pretend story. And then I can make some other things up for my story to entertain you and maybe to teach you a lesson. The person who would read it would maybe learn a lesson. So, for writing assignment number 2, please, I want to switch over to my let me see how I can do that. Give me a second. I'm trying to show you a document that I made. So for assignment number 2, I want to tell you what you need to do. And I will put this in the email so you can read it. But remember, I said in class, your topic is a childhood memory or an event, something that happened. An event is something that happened to you when you were younger. That's your topic. But you need to think of a specific topic. So remember, I said in class, I'm thinking about using my father and the story about his gun, or I could tell a story about learning how to make spaghetti and meatballs in my grandmother's kitchen. It's a funny story to me, and I like telling it. And again, I can tell that as nonfiction or fiction. So you get to choose also. Will your story that you choose to write be a real story, a memoir, personal narrative, or a make-believe story, a pretend story, fiction, or a short story? So you get to choose your childhood event and also which kind of writing you will do, fiction or nonfiction. Like assignment number 1, when you wrote about your mother and your grandmother, please write at least 1 page. But we will start writing this essay or this story in class on Tuesday. So for Tuesday, for the weekend homework, you only need to watch this video, listen to me explain it, and think about your topic and will it be fiction or nonfiction. On Tuesday, I will ask you to share your ideas and tell us whether you will write fiction or nonfiction, and we will start writing it in class. So nothing to write for the weekend unless you want to, but when we start writing it, we will try to write 1 full page. So I hope that listening to this video has helped you to understand writing assignment number 2. And remember, you are making corrections or revisions or editing some grammar errors in writing assignment number 1 about your mother or grandmother. And you are rewriting using my highlighting and the handout I gave you that tells what the colors mean to make those corrections. So you're just making corrections for the first writing assignment and then thinking about your topic what you want to write about for writing assignment number 2 for Tuesday. If you have any questions at all, you can email or text me, or you can email or text Adrian, and we will be happy to help you get the answers you need. Okay? Have a great weekend.